Hey there, my name is Brashler, and in this video, I want to talk to you about my new wireless microphone measurement kit that I use for tuning every single system that I am doing a system tuning on. And that is with the, and I'm going to pronounce this probably wrong, is the Gaodimic or Gaodimic. I'm sorry that I'm butchering this name, but it's the AT210. And this is a wireless measurement unit that is a wireless microphone kit. And the benefit of this is it is mostly flat from 20K all the way down to 20 hertz, and the phase coherency is excellent on this wireless kit. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about this unit and why it's replaced my older Shure unit that I used to use. Now, just a little bit of transparency here. I did ask them to send me this kit after I saw this popping up on a bunch of Smaart Facebook forums and Reddit posts about this unit. And so I asked them to send it to me for me to give you guys an honest review. All of the review that I'm doing here, I have not been paid for, and this is completely my own thoughts. So I have done smart measurements through this, and I'm going to tell you all about the benefits and the cons of this set of unit. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident with your production gear no matter where you're starting from. So let's go ahead and dive in on this. Now, the huge benefit of this, and as you can see, is this is quite small. So here's the transmitter, here is the receiver. It has two antennas that it comes with, and I've made a small cable to be able to plug it into my audio interface, and here's my RTA microphone. And all of this is very, very small. I can put this into my Pelican case, and it does not take up much space. As we can see, this is nice and thin, and it is just very simple. Now, the other huge thing about this is it is a rechargeable lithium-ion battery that's built into the receiver and built into the transmitter. So you can swap out the batteries in this. So if we open this up, there are two 14500 cells. Now this is a lithium-ion 3.7 volt battery. So you can't just pop these out and put AA's in. It does need to be the 14500s, but if you have a battery charger that's external that you're running some 14500s in, you can obviously swap them out. Now, I have had about 5 hours of battery life with this unit, even with powering phantom power. So I have never had to swap out the batteries. Basically, I tune, I plug it into the USB-C charger, and it just charges. Now, the other benefit is the receiver is also lithium-ion, and both of these are USB-C powered, as we can see on the bottom of these units. Now, the other thing that I like about this is that there are external antennas. So if I am tuning in a larger space, I could swap these out with a directional antenna as part of a distribution unit if I wanted to. But just by default, these two little rubber ducks, as I call them, are perfectly sufficient for tuning a large stadium or arena with this unit. I've never had any wireless dropouts, especially when we are choosing the correct frequencies, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But let's check out the receiver portion of this first. Now, there is an XLR on the bottom, as well as our antenna connections, which are B and C, and then we have our USB-C for recharging this unit. Now, if we look at the front of this, there is a simple power switch, an up and down, as well as a set button. Now, as far as the menu structure goes, if I go into this, I can press set, and I can go into my group frequencies as well as my channel frequencies, and then if I press set again, I can go and actually scan the frequencies, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And if I press set one more time, it'll show me my version of the firmware as well as the date of the firmware. And if I press set one more time, it'll go back to the original screen. So with this, if I am setting this up for the first time, I can go ahead and press set, and I can go through the different groups that I have. Now, depending on which region yours is programmed in, mine is programmed in the United States, you have a different amount of groups. So in the US version, there are 5 groups. There is 1 through 4, and then 5 is kind of a custom group that you can custom program in a way. So if we go to our group 4, then we can press set, and then we can actually go through the different frequencies as far as channels go. Now, each group has 12 channels of frequencies. And so in this case, I have this set to channel 10. Now, if I want to scan, this is going to be the best way of making sure that your wireless frequency that you're choosing is going to work well with this unit. In which case, once you press set, and go to scan frequencies, all you have to do is press the up or the down arrow, and it will go start scanning through those frequencies to finding what the level is as far as RF goes for that channel. Now, if I go down into my channel 12, we'll notice that 505.800 has a reading of -45 dB. This is rated in dBm. So we want to make sure that we're getting a reading of just like the base channel of around -80, -75. If it's lower than that, it's even better. But if we see something that's up in the -44, that means that there's going to be some interference there. So if I actually set my transmitter to that channel on this group, I might have a reduced amount of distance as well as some interference. So in this case, I'm going to go find a channel that doesn't have really any noise, and that actually is this 602.140. So we can see that there is about -101 dBm. Now, when I'm making this measurement, I'm obviously going to want to have this sitting right here. That way it's going to be having these antennas scanning in the horizontal plane, because remember, these are rubber ducks, or just basically dipole antennas here, and so they receive in this plane, not up and down. So I don't want to point this at where my microphone is going. I want to have them straight like this, and then one tip is to have one at 45 and the other at another 45 the other way. And so as I'm doing this reading here, I am actually seeing that my group for channel 10 is going to be my best frequency here. So what I can do is I can then press set and then go and program my group and channel back to what I want this to be at. Now, the other function of our up and down arrows is that I can actually adjust the volume on here. Now, there's volume from 0, which is complete mute, all the way up to a volume of 9. And so what I have noticed is that having this at a volume of around 7 is going to be pretty flat as far as unity gain goes. And so I'll show you my measurement settings that I have on the transmitter here in a little bit, but I usually have the volume setting of the receiver at 7. Now, moving on to the transmitter is very small. We have a single XLR that also locks by a screw, as well as a single screen, a button here. We have a set button, an on and off switch, and then our USB-C for charging, as well as our battery door for switching out our 14500 batteries if we desired. And we can go ahead and lock that. And so here is the transmitter. So to turn this on, all I have to do is just slide the switch to on, and then we will see the screen start to pop on. And instantly we can see that it shows that I have a transmitter here. So if I turn this off, the receiver will show that there's no transmitter, and as I turn this back on, there is now a transmitter. Now, one thing I want to mention about this unit is that it is a digital wireless protocol, meaning that it's taking all of the analog from our XLR input, turning it into a digital modulation. That digital modulation is going to the receiver, being unmodulated, and then goes through a digital to analog converter to go out the XLR. Now, the benefit of a digital protocol is that it gets the best audio quality without this thing called companding. Now, companding is a combination of compression and expanding on analog systems. And this is why you never want to use an analog wireless microphone that has companding, is because it's going to compress your measurement, it's going to send that over the wireless protocol over to your receiver, then it's going to expand that measurement, and so our wireless measurements are never going to be accurate. with any unit that has companding. And that's why a digital protocol is going to be a superior protocol for our measurement mics. Because when I'm using a measurement mic and I'm tuning a system, I'm wanting to make sure that my measurements are like I have a XLR cable plugged into this microphone. So on this unit, we have a couple of things. If we press this button on the front, it will then show us the milliamp hours that are left on the battery, the current draw in milliamps, as well as a timer countdown of battery life left on this unit. So we can see that there is 5 hours, 32 minutes, and about 20 seconds left of battery life on this unit in the current configuration that it's in. Now, if we press this one more time, we will go back to our screen. Now, one thing that I want to mention is if we press and hold this, what will happen is it will actually turn into a gyroscope and show me where my X and Y is, as well as my Z. So we can see that as I'm moving this around, I am changing the angle of this. Now, the other cool thing is there is a laser pointer. So if you wanted to land multiple measurements at the same spot, you could make a measurement from the floor to wherever this is, and then angle this so that it is pointing in the correct spot where you had it before. So if you wanted to land a measurement in the exact same spot, you can do that with this little laser pointer. Now, the one thing the laser pointer doesn't do is it does not measure distance. So don't think that this is a laser distance measurement, which honestly would be pretty sweet. But if we want to get out of this mode, we just press and hold, and it will go back to our default screen. Now, on the bottom is our set button. Now, our set button allows us to go through the different menus here. So I'm going to show you the different menus that there are, and then I'm going to then talk about the different menus and how they function. So if we press the set button once, it will get us to our group. And if we press it again, it will go to our channel. So obviously we have our 5 groups in the US region, as well as 12 channels per group. And so then if I press this again, we then go to our input. Now, our input can either be line level or phantom powered, which is huge. So I'm going to continue on. We have a gain setting that we can set a different gain adjustment on this unit. We also have our power for our RF, which we can set to a low, medium, or high. And then we have our firmware version, as well as the date of the firmware. And then if we press set one more time, it'll take us back to our original screen here. So when we are setting this up, if we press set, and we then have our group. So I can go scroll through our different groups here. So say I wanted to go to group 2, channel 3. Well, then I would go and press group 2, press set, and then go to channel 3, press set. And now if I continue through, we will see that I am on group 2, channel 3. But because my receiver is group 4, channel 10, I'm going to set this to group 4 and then go to the channel of 10. Now, the input, we have the ability of selecting line level, mic level 24 volt, or mic level 48 volt. Now, I want to mention to you that this can power a phantom powered microphone, which is important because every measurement microphone that we use is going to be phantom powered. Now, there is a plus 24 volt phantom and a plus 48 volt phantom. Now, depending on what specific microphone you're using will dictate whether or not you can run 24 volt or if you can run 48 volt. In my measurement mic, which is the Dayton Audio measurement mic, which is comes with a calibrated file, very inexpensive, great microphone, haven't had any issues with it. This microphone can be powered at 24 volt phantom power, which is great because I can then run this transmitter at 24 volt, which will give me a longer battery life. If I have to run this at 48 volt, it's going to lower the battery life of this slightly. So just keep that in mind. The other thing that I need to mention is my Smaart measurements. And I'll actually talk about this here after I get through the whole menu structure of this. And there are some slightly different curves, whether or not you're using line level, 24 volt, or 48 volt phantom. So just keep that in mind for a later portion of this video. Going back into here, I'm going to make sure to set this to 24 volt. And once we do, then we can see that my receiver shows that the transmitter is at 24 volt mode, which is great. Now my gain settings, I can actually change this gain from 0 to 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. 24 being the highest amount of gain that I can apply to my microphone preamp inside of this. Now, I have found that when you're tuning a quieter system, that a gain of 24 on this transmitter is perfect. I have found that this is a perfect measurement level as far as the microphone goes. Now, if you're tuning at a louder volume, you'll obviously want to have that gain a little bit lower so you don't distort your measurement. So my typical setup is I have this set to 24 volt for the phantom power, as well as a 24 dB gain for the preamp for this measurement. And then on my receiver, I will typically have the volume at 7, and I found that that is the most beneficial setting that I have this set to. Now, going back into the menu structure here, if I press set, we will then go to our input, which is 24 volt, and our gain, which is 24 dB, and then we get to power. So we have a low, a middle, and a high for RF power. And obviously, if I have this set to low power, it will limit my distance that I can get away from my receiver with my transmitter. So I have found that setting this to high is going to give you the best beneficial results, because then you can have your wireless transmitter at a farther distance from your receiver without having any drops or issues. Now, again, going back into our menu structure here, we go to our RF power, and then the next one shows us our firmware. And that's basically the entire settings menu of this unit. We have our adjustments as far as volume goes and our frequency for the receiver. And then on the transmitter, I can go to different things in power settings or line level, as well as adding in some gain and setting if it's a high, medium, or low RF power. Now, when I actually plug this into my microphone, I can then screw this, and this will actually lock my microphone onto this transmitter, meaning that I can now move this microphone anywhere I want to, and this transmitter is not going to fall off of this microphone, which is great. And so as we can see as I'm talking here, we can see the meter going on this receiver, and if I tap on this, obviously it's going to get very loud. Now, if I go into the menu structure here and I look at the time left that I have on this microphone, I have about 5 hours of battery life left. And if I set this to 48 volt, it's also about 5 hours, which is impressive. Now, the microphone is going to draw the voltage that it needs for actually pulling and actually powering this microphone. So it's going to change the battery life depending on what microphone you have plugged into your unit. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's actually talk about the measurement of using this with Smaart. So I have my measurements here, and I'm going to talk through them and tell you about the pros and cons of this unit as far as our audio bandwidth and phase transparency with this as a wireless measurement setup. So I tested the AT210 with Smaart on a calibrated unit as far as my audio test path goes, and these are the results that I measured. Now, when I measured the AT210 on line level, we can see here is my magnitude response, and we can see that it goes all the way from 20 kilohertz all the way down to 20 hertz, and there is a slight roll-off at the very, very low end. So down at 20 hertz, there's a negative 3 dB drop as far as the measurement goes with the magnitude. Now, in my opinion, this is fine, because when I am doing all of my measurements, I'm always using this setup. So all of my measurements are going to be identical. I'm not having multiple microphones of this set up with some on an XLR and some on a wireless. I'm using all of them with the same wireless unit. And so all of my measurements are going to be identical, which is very important. The next thing is, with this low end roll off at 20 hertz, I'm not setting my subwoofers completely off of measurement. I am also setting my subwoofer level as far as subwoofer volume versus the mains off of my ears and my feeling. It's not just measurements. So I'm fine with having a little bit of roll off here. Now this is going to be the main con of this unit, is there is a slight roll off, and I mean slight. Like 3 dB is not that big of a deal when we're talking about 20 hertz on a measurement. Now the great thing is, when we look at the phase transparency, it is almost perfect. So there is a 40-degree shift down at 20 hertz and about 18, 19-degree shift in the upper region at 20 kilohertz. So in this case, again, because I'm using the same wireless microphone setup for all of my measurement mics, all of my measurements are going to be identical. Now, when I add this into the 24 volt, when I add in phantom power, my measurement adds in a little bit more reduction in the low end and adds in a little bit more phase transparency into the measurement. So we can see that here is my green measurement, and this is with this transmitter set to 24 volt phantom power. And as we can see, there is a negative 6 dB roll off at 20 hertz. And once we get to 125, it's just right about even with the rest of this measurement, which again, I'm completely fine with. This is perfectly usable for me, in my opinion. Because again, subwoofers are something that I'm not just setting with a measurement, I'm also setting it with my ears and feeling of music, not just pink noise. So keep that in mind. But again, all of my measurements that I'm taking are with the same unit. So when I'm averaging measurements together inside of Smaart, I am having consistency across the measurements. So all of my phase is going to look the same. All the magnitude is going to look the same. Again, just keep that in mind. So we can see that there's a negative 6 dB roll off at 20 hertz, and up in the important frequencies where you hit, 50 hertz is sitting at negative 2. So again, not that big of a deal. Now, when we add in it to 48 volt, this is where it gets into a little bit of an issue, in my opinion. So, and this is why I always am looking for a measurement microphone that happens to work at 24 volt. And you can look through your microphone's manual to see if it will work with 24 volt phantom power. In my case, most of them do. Just make sure to consult your manual to make sure that it will. But in this case, with this set to 48 volt, I am getting quite a bit of roll off, and my 20 hertz measurement is now at negative 11 dB. And so in this case, this would be the biggest con of this unit, is that if you're running it at 48 volt, there is a pretty significant roll off. Now, I don't know if this is because of the way I did my measurement. It's possible that my measurement with plugging this into the audio interface directly, maybe this actually isn't there and isn't the case. But in my opinion, I wouldn't be using this in a 48 volt phantom power. I would be choosing the 24 volt phantom power. Now, the rest of the unit is actually pretty great. So we have a 3 dB, a 6 dB, and a 9 dB gain. I wasn't able to measure higher than that because I was limited to my measurement with the gain portion. But we can see that all of these are landing at 3 dB increments, which is great. Now, if I go into my volume on the receiver, we can see that here are the different volumes for my settings here. And let me turn off this one. So we can see that the blue line is my volume of 9, and then the green line is my volume of 8. So we're sitting at 5. And then volume 7 is plus 2.5. Volume 6 is sitting right at 0. Volume 5 is negative 1.5. 4 jumps down a little bit more, which is negative 6.5. And then volume 3, we're sitting at negative 9.5. Volume 2 is sitting down at negative 13. Volume 1 is sitting down at about negative 17.5. And then volume 0 is a complete mute. So now all of these measurements with the volume is great because I can see that it is phase coherent across all of the volume measurements. Now, one huge benefit of this unit is the latency. My latency is sitting right at about 4.16 milliseconds. And this latency does not change after about 20 seconds of when you turn it on. So there's a little bit of a boot process. So turn it on and leave it for about 30 seconds. And then after that time, all of your measurements will be consistent across all of your measurements. They are going to be consistent as far as time goes, or this latency. Now, this is important because I have tried some other digital protocols and other ones that are slightly cheaper. I've had some issues as far as that timing. It will drift and shift. And what's a problem with that is if you place this out on a mic stand and you calibrate your distance, if that timing of this wireless unit shifts, now it's shifting where this microphone is as far as your measurement goes, which is a big no-no. We want to make sure that all of our measurements are sitting correctly as far as time goes. And so with other wireless units that I've tried, if that timing changes, then that means that that measurement is not going to be good because you've changed your time as far as your measurement goes inside of Smaart. So I'll get off my soapbox here. But what's great about this unit is that it is USB-C for recharge, that there's a battery built into the receiver and the transmitter. It is extremely compact. It powers a phantom-powered microphone, and the measurement consistency is the same no matter really the distance from the receiver. So if I set this out at 180 feet from this receiver, the latency is still going to be the same versus this being at 20 feet, which is great. Now, some other uses with this is maybe I have a condenser microphone that I'm wanting to put on, say, maybe a piano or something like that. And what's great about this is because we have that close to 20 to 20K response of this microphone, wireless transmitter, is that I could place this on a, say, large diaphragm condenser like this, and I could go put this on a piano and have close to a similar response as if I was using an XLR cable. So I could put this now inside of a piano shell, and I know that this is wireless, so when we move on and off the piano, if it was staged like that, then I can do this and mic that piano without any XLR cables. And as long as this is turned on and I have the receiver in a good distance from that shell, then I know that this is going to sound great. Now, again, obviously this would work with a dynamic microphone as well. So I could plug this into a, say, a SM57 if I wanted to, or an SM58. And it would also work just fine. And because this is a screw lock here, I can lock it onto a microphone, and I could turn in this SM57 into a wireless vocal mic, and I can screw this in, and boom, this is now locked on, and I've now made this SM57 a wireless microphone. So there is much more than just using this as a wireless measurement mic. I could actually use this for a service if I needed to, or a specific thing. Maybe I have a podium microphone on a podium that I need to place mid-show, and I don't want to have cables going to it. Well, I can have this sitting inside of that podium. I can wire in the podium mic directly into this. If it needs phantom power, I can turn phantom power on, and it will just work. And the other benefit of this unit is because these are BNC, you can add this to any wireless distribution system that you have, as long as the frequencies match what this unit is going to do, which is from 470 to 608 in the US band. So just keep that in mind. But I would highly suggest this unit if you are looking for a simple wireless setup for measurement, or a simple wireless setup for getting a dynamic microphone or a condenser microphone on a piano or a lectern or podium, or really anything like that. If you want to check out more about this product, you can look down in the description below, and I have a link to their website for purchasing. And again, they did send this to me off of my request, but all of my opinions in this video are my own. They are not influenced by the manufacturer at all. And so these are honestly my opinions of this product, which, in my opinion, it's a great product. And I have used this for about the last 6 months with all of my measurements for all of my PA tunings, which was a good amount. And I've used this in multiple different venues and arenas and churches and everything like that. And I have not had any issues with this setup, which is one of the main reasons that I'm recommending it to you. I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you do happen to have any questions, or there's a video that you're hoping that I would make on a piece of gear or X32 or different things like that, please post that in the comment section down below, as I'm always reading through those comments to find videos that can be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day.